Good afternoon, all of you. I'm not going to take too much of your time. I'm sure you'll be absolutely delighted to hear. And I'm very conscious that you've had two very long and enthralling days covering lots of initiatives and that you've been hugely involved today as well. But I did just want to say a few things with my hat on as Chairman of Business in the Community and not rise to the conversation before about self-checkout and what that means for community, although I'm sorely tempted to do so. So I really wanted to do some context setting for you if I can. I just wanted to talk to you about my reflections of now working with Stephen and his fantastic team for the last year as Chairman of Business in the Community. I then just wanted to talk about what business in the community is trying to do and then link that in a little to what Waitrose is trying to do on the CSR agenda. But I promise I'm not going to take any more than 10 minutes. So the first thing, my reflections on my first year in BITC as chairman. I think the first thing I'd say is the people in BITC are just quite extraordinary. The amount of work they do, the amount they give to the organisation on the behalf of 850 businesses that are members of business in the community, and just the width of programmes they run. And I'm sure all of you here today and here yesterday are just bowled over by everything from Opportunity Now to business class to what we're doing with ARC to regeneration programs. It almost seems as though there's no area of the social agenda that BIT doesn't touch, and that's a great credit to Stephen and all the people that work with him who just bring that huge energy to all that BITC does. I think the second thing that strikes you very clearly is that the state is shrinking and that individuals and the private sector is going to have to take more of the slack. Now, in a very obvious way, we've seen that with the RDAs going around the country. We've seen lots of programs that were previously funded, the BITC programs disappear. And so the great challenge for us is to say, well, in BITC, how are we going to respond to that? And there are two challenges. One is, how do we raise the money to deliver our programs? And then there's obviously a much bigger issue for society in how does society reorganise around a state that is going to be much smaller going forward. And so wrestling with that at BITC is one of our top priorities. And then lastly, and I feel more powerfully felt by many of us over the last 12 months, is this sort of anti-business feeling. And you see it coming up in all kind of places. And we have to accept that business is going to create wealth. As Terry Leahy said in an interview I read yesterday, if you don't have business creating wealth, you can't pay for the health service, you can't pay for those things. But somehow we're on the back foot. And I think that BITC has a really important role going forward to let people know that business is here for good. If we don't have healthy back streets, we don't have healthy high streets, as Marcus Seif said a long time ago now. And so the responsibility for us in business is to make sure that we're generating wealth that creates jobs, but not only that, we're doing all the things you've heard about over the last 2 days in terms of addressing some of the most intractable issues in terms of the social agenda. Now, what's the response to those issues? Well, Gail and her team, Gail Grigros and her team, have done an absolutely fantastic job in trying to set out very clearly what BITC is trying to do. What we're trying to do is transform business and transform communities. And if you see our work online or in published material, what you'll see is programs that help businesses perform better, whether that be in diversity, whether that be in supply chain management, but also it's about what our ask is of business in helping in society. And we've grouped that under 4 areas, under education, under employment, under the environment, and under enterprise. Now, in running Waitrose, one of the things that's clear is there are lots of issues in society, but we've taken a view that as a business, we can't hope to tackle them all. Much as important as we think John Varley's work is with BITC, with the homeless, we need to bring a focus to the things that we think resonate with our partners and with our customers. And so there are 4 key areas for Waitrose, and this is where I just want to explain how what we are doing as a business links in absolutely with the agenda of BITC. So the first thing that we believe is that we should be championing British, we should be championing British farming, and we should be supporting a really vibrant and sustainable agricultural sector in the UK. So we are on the Rural Action Programme, which is part of BITC, and we're also involved in the Prince's Countryside Fund, which is also run through BITC. Secondly, we think that we have to tread lightly. We're one of those businesses now that thinks that you not only have to have a balance of what you take and what you give, but we've got to start being restorative. And so in all the programs that we run now, we are trying to give back more, whether it be fishing, whether it be soya, whatever we try to do, we recognise we've got to put back. And BITC runs a Mayday programme, it runs a START programme which we're involved in, and we're very pleased to be able to join with BITC to do that. We believe in treating people fairly, whether that's our own employees, whether that's the people that we trade with, or the communities that we serve, and we have a number of programmes to do that. But they chime incredibly well with the workplace initiatives, which again you will have heard about over the last 2 days. And lastly, we think we have a responsibility in Waitrose to help people live well. And so in working with Erwin Lee on his programme in BITC about health and well-being, etc., looking at the marketplace work in total, we can link into that. So what Gail has so skillfully done is set out a menu that allows companies to say, those are things we're really interested in. They chime with our business values, and we want to play in this space. But if there are areas that don't fit, then clearly you don't need to get engaged. And I think that's been great work by Stephen and the team to bring that focus. The 2 other things that we've been trying to do, and I'll just take a couple of minutes on these, is first of all, think very carefully about collaboration and coordination within BITC. Arts and business has become part of BITC this year. We're aware that many other charities are going through difficulties, and so Stephen's been working with other NGOs to make sure that our energies are best leveraged across a number of NGO organisations and voluntary services. And we're working very closely, for instance, with the Prince's Trust on youth work there. So a lot of work in BITC to make sure that we are being supportive of all the other people that are trying to do good in our society. And then in terms of coordination, a number of you may well have heard about our Connector programme over the last 2 days. I won't go on about it, but a hugely important programme where what we're trying to do is put hundreds of people on the ground in some of the most deprived areas of the UK, and in doing so, to have them bring together all the parties involved in making the situation there better, whether it be businesses through BITC, whether it be the local political groups, the councils, the NGOs. Now, we've got 20 of those connectors on the ground now. We hope to have 70 by the summer of this year, and we're hoping to have many hundreds going forward. So if there's one thing I'd like you to take away from the 2 days with my chairman of the BITC hat on is, please think about business connectors. Please think about getting young, bright people to leave your businesses for a period of time to help us pull together all those programs to make a real difference in the most deprived areas. And then lastly, and it's been said this afternoon and no doubt many times, we do have a problem with young people getting into the workplace. 1 million, 1.5 million now not in training. You all know the figure. And I think we have a real responsibility in BITC to try and help that. And we've got some brilliant programs. Paul Dreschler Business Class with business leaders going into their local schools and supporting there, whether it be Work Inspiration with Christine Hodgson. 150,000 now students have come into the workplace and been inspired about the world of work and what we can do for them. Steve Holliday and apprenticeships and all the work that he's doing there. So we have some absolutely brilliant people running brilliant programs that are trying to get young people into work and make sure that we don't lose a generation. And I would just hope all of you are as engaged as you can be in trying to help us with that agenda. So lastly, thank you very much for your time. I hope you found the 2 days really useful. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.